What's up, guys? So we got something new for the challenge. Since my carbon deal kind of spiraled out of hand, the only thing left is this titanium gray tank. It doesn't really fit the flow with the dark carbon and everything. Obviously, the Bravely decals did a great job kind of blending everything in for the past year or so. These things are absolutely flawless, no issues with them at all. Great investment if you just want to cover up the OEM logo or whatever. But the titanium gray kind of has to go. So what I did was I found a used tank on eBay that didn't have dents, and I sent it to my local painter. Currently, he still has it. I'm going to pick it up this week. But in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to remove this tank, pull the fuel pump out, replace the filter, and then show you little quirks and features to get this tank off when you have a barnstorm kit. So let's dive into it. So obviously what you're going to do first, you're going to pop these two covers off. Side. What I like to do is I'll stick a little bit of a dielectric grease on these. It makes them easier to pop on and off, and you don't have to worry about these bushings tearing. And you're going to use a 6mm Allen. You're going to pop your seat bolts off. Once both seat bolts are out, you're just going to hit back here. Your seat comes right off. Alright, so with the seat off, if you have the barnstorm kit installed, you can't actually get this off because what happens is it hits up here. So this is 4mm Allen to get this off. So what you have to actually do is take a 6mm Allen, remove these two bolts, pick the tank up, slide it back just a little bit, then you can get this off to get into your fuel pump stuff. So with these two out, pick it up ever so slightly, and put it back just a hair. Then we'll be able to lift this up, slide it out like that. So obviously I modified this bracket to make it a little lighter and more race bikey. But you would take this triangular panel cover off, and then here is your fuel line right here. There's a little button up there. So what you're going to do is you're going to press on that button, push in on the fuel line while you're pressing it, and pull out. So you're going to come up here, press in, push in, and pull off. And that's how you get that out. So this fuel line runs all the way up to your fuel pump, so that you don't have to disconnect anything else. Then I'm going to come back here. We're going to disconnect our vent line from the back. We are going to disconnect our electrical harnesses up here. So we have this one and this one. Never mind this RTV. I broke this a couple years ago playing with it. So we're going to disconnect this, and then the whole tank will just lift right off. We'll part that one. We'll part this one. And this, your tank harness, it just sits up here. Just route that like that. And with those off, you should be able to just lift, come back, the whole tank comes right off. So obviously, what we want to do is, since the tank's already off, we're going to clean all this up a little bit. We're going to clean our K&N air filter, and then we're going to swap over a fuel pump. So for the air filter, it's a couple 6mm bolts. You just take your wiring harness and your brake lines and kind of move them aside and pull that right out. And as you can see, she is nasty. I probably should have cleaned this a long time ago. Probably has 5,000 miles on it or so. It's actually cleaned it, and I do have the centerpiece still up on top of my frame per Lloyd's tuners. He said to leave that in. But yeah, she's pretty nasty, so she definitely needed a good cleaning. Alright, so what I did was I shoved the shock back down there, clean all the bugs and everything out of there. I'll clean the filter tomorrow. Got all this cleaned up, nice and nice. So we're going to come and do over here is we're going to get this fuel pump out. So you have your other side of your fuel line over here. It's the exact same thing. You press down the button, push in, pop out, and this will just pop out like that. You have another vent hose over here that also just kind of pops out. Slide that down over here. Then you have a bunch of 8mm bolts that are all going to come out. Since I already had this part, we're gonna replace the fuel filter. Fuel filter, I think it was like 50 bucks, which is a little expensive for this. But unlike some Jap bikes, which is incorporated into the fuel pump, this is replaceable, serviceable item, which is nice. And then here is the part number, if you can read it. So, might as well. The bike has 10,000 miles, so it didn't really need it. But since we're pulling it, we're gonna change it anyway. Alright, so some of you tech nerds might actually enjoy this, but if you notice, there's numbers. So here's 1, 2, where's 3? 3, 4. So these are actually labeled so you can do cross pattern torque motion on this assembly. So I couldn't quite figure out what it was, so we always went to the Tresillo manual. Tells you where to disconnect everything, and then it says to push inward on the locking tab. So in my mind, pushing inward meant towards me, like towards the center of the tank. So the fuel pump sits over here, so I thought inward was towards me. It was not. Inward meant towards the actual pump. So what you're gonna do is you take this tab here, you push it towards the pump, then it releases itself, and then you can pull it out. So basically what I did was pull the pump out a little bit, rotated it this way, and then we came out this way. For this thing, same thing. You press on these 2 tabs, push in towards fitting, and pull out. So I'm gonna pop a new filter on here. So obviously when you do this, you want to run your tank pretty much dry. So I went out for a ride yesterday with 100 miles left in the tank, and I rode 95 miles. And the lights were all flashing and everything. There was actually still a decent amount of gas still in the tank. So even when your light's on, you still got a good bit to go. So we disposed of that properly per the EPA regulations, 100%. Popped on a new filter, basically just snaps on. That's pretty easy. I did pull all this stuff off from the bottom of the tank, and then these bushings, because my new tank didn't have any of this stuff because it was just a bare tank. And as you can also see, these decals are still in pristine condition. But yeah, so we're just gonna throw this up on a shelf, and then we're gonna go pick up my new tank here in another day or so. We're gonna throw it on here. All right, so a couple days passed. I already put the filter in, and obviously this filter's already done. And we're getting ready to put this tank in a box and stick it up there with everything else. Kind of with the inspiration, obviously, was to kind of go for the FTR stuff. So I sent him this over to get a paint sample. As you can see, it's damn near perfect. Obviously, the light changes the spread ever so much. And then this is the gold off of the race bikes, and then obviously it's your OEM white off the FTR. For the tank, he kind of matched the FTR. This doesn't have as much purple pearl in it as that did. I didn't want that exact black, obviously because of the carbon and everything. So I wanted some metallic, but not a lot. So this actually worked out perfectly. For this panel, I did buy a spare panel, so I'm going to kind of have him theme it somewhat after the FTR panel, maybe with this leaf stuff and some stars and something like that, maybe motorcycle racing. But there's not a whole lot of room to work here, but that's going to happen in a little bit. I told him not to rush it. But looking at the FTR one, you can see this has a lot more flake in it. It's a little bit more flashy. So I think this is a nice happy medium, especially with all the carbon. I am super pumped with it. And if you look at the race bike, this is a little bit more thin back here. The Indian's pushed back a little bit more, and the red cuts off a little bit differently. So we wanted to go slightly different than the race bike, so we added a little bit more white here, made the Indian bigger, and kind of centered everything up. But I think it looks pretty sweet. So let's get this off, try not to scratch it. We're going to put the fuel pump back in. So obviously the goal here is to not scratch anything. The foot's going to go that way. And remember how I got this thing out of here. No, that wasn't too bad. Okay. There we go. Not too horrible.
And this should slide in these rails. There we go. Alright, so we heard the audible click. You can make sure that the float moves. It's full rotation. I think we're good. Actually, what I'm do take my screwdriver and just manually move the float up and down. Make sure nothing's binding. It's not. I'm going to verify that filter's down there. Bottomed out. Come back in here. Twist this back over. Connect the fuel line. I think we're good. So with all of them started, like I said before, it tells you a sequence right on the thing. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're just gonna go in a start pattern and snug everything up. And then we'll go back and torque it for the manual. For the manual, you want to do 44 inch-pounds, and again, you're just going to come back through and do the start pattern. So with that all torqued down, what we're going to do is I'm going to slide this under here. Go ahead and connect it up here. We're going to do the same thing with our vent hose. The hose gets popped in there and put in there. So we're going to flip it back over. Put our hoses back in these little clips. And obviously zip tie them together. So when you're putting the tank on, obviously you have two little hooks that go in here. Be careful not to snag it on your bullet cap, but you just want to pop it right on here. Because remember, we had the Barnstorm kit, so we're going to leave the back bolts out and back a little bit, and then we're going to hook up everything up there. So just want to verify everything lines up. I'm going to go ahead and reconnect our electrical harness. I'm going to keep this off because I don't want the fuel pump to turn on yet. We're going to power the bike up, and then I want to unlock my cap and fill it with fuel, and then let it prime a couple times before I actually hook everything back up. I don't want to waste all my good fuel, but that'll get me down to the gas station. Push your prime. Oh. Start. Well, guess what we forgot to do. Well, got a little squirt of fuel down there. So fuel pump's primed. We're good to go. So I'm going to let that dry out before I attempt to start it. So let's get this back on. And bolts back in. So for this bolt, so there's a brass fitting in here. If you tighten it too much, you strip this brass fitting, and it is a pain to get out. You do not want to put any torque on that. Just make it nice, and where it just touches the panel, and call it a day. That's all you gotta do. They do have a new bolt kit for this. I'll probably buy that once I get this panel in. But for now, I just put my little coin back over that. And there you have it. I am extremely pleased with how this came out. There's going to be something going on with this long thing here shortly. Stay tuned for that. And we got a few $100 worth of oil changes over here. There is something going on with the clutch here soon, so I'm going to hold off on the oil changes until that comes out. I think this might be the final revision of this, and then I can finally post a video with all the clutch work that's been going on. But we're getting closer. And let's get this out in the sun and see what she looks like. Of course, the sun's not totally out in my driveway, but you see it actually in sunlight and not the fluorescent lights, but everything matches perfectly. I love it. Comment below, let me know what you guys think, and if I should add anything else to the bags or just leave that all plain black. If I do something, that'll obviously be a winter project. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll put the link in the description below for the guy who painted this. His name's Sinister Airbrush. He's out of Bloomsburg, PA. Amazing work. I think I dropped this off to him less than 2 weeks ago. I told him not to rush it or be in a hurry, but he still got it back to me in a very quick turnaround time. And it was also extremely reasonably priced. So I bought this used tank, which you know how expensive they are on eBay, and paid for the paint job because he actually repainted the black too, and it was less than a discounted OEM painted tank. So see you guys, thanks.